Nubby's Number Factory is the most addicting indie roguelike I have played since Balatro. This game was made by a solo developer, and I have the privilege of chatting with him here today. His online name is MogDog Blog, and his first ever Steam release has been an unexpected hit. This Plinko-inspired roguelike has a simple and satisfying gameplay loop of making bigger and bigger numbers by bouncing the titular Nubby on pegs of different number values. Collecting various absurdly themed items and perks will create synergies and fill the screen with a delightful barrage of sound effects and visuals. Not only is the gameplay snappy, intuitive, and fun, the aesthetic also stands out among peers in the genre, evocative of early 2000s edutainment games. Nubby's Number Factory absolutely oozes with charm and creativity, and I'd say its overwhelmingly positive reception on Steam is well deserved. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, MogDog Blog, and thank you as well for making such a fun game. I've been absolutely loving it.
Yeah, it is my pleasure to be on here. I'm super duper happy to be on your little show.
I'm very grateful, and the fans have been loving Nubby on my channel. I'm mostly a Pokemon YouTuber, but they've been responding very well.
I thought that was interesting. That I thought it was really interesting that you of all people picked up Nubby, and that your community that is so centered around Pokemon as a theme responded to it so well. It's just kind of it blew my mind a little bit. It made me feel like it's versatile enough maybe to capture a lot of different audiences. It's really cool. I'm really happy that your community is into it.
Yeah, I love games like this. I mean, I've been a roguelike fan for a long time. Played Spelunky, Isaac, Slay the Spire, all of them. So I've always wanted to branch out into games like this in my videos, and it hasn't done as well as I'd hoped, but Nubby has been a hit for me. People love it.
Yeah, maybe this could be like a cool kind of entry point into the roguelike territory. I've always been a huge fan of roguelikes as well, and I'd always kind of wanted to make one, so I've been like, you know, progressively over the past 5 or 6 years of my little game development career, kind of like working up towards this monolithic roguelike that I would work on for a long time, and that just ended up being Nubby's Number Factory.
Well, that's fantastic, and I think people just respond well to it immediately. I actually showed my brother. I was like, you got to check out this game called Nubby's Number Factory, and I showed him just a brief gameplay video, and within like half a second you could see a smile on his face, and he just said, this is amazing. Like, just seeing the visuals immediately captures something for people because of the 2000s aesthetic, and me and him grew up with games that look exactly like Nubby's Number Factory.
Yeah, I think that was actually something that I really leaned into when I was designing, was the like you can look at it for a second and be kind of immersed in what's going on. Kind of the insanity. Like, I'll be, you know, watching people's streams, and like they're late game, they're in endless mode, and it's just like stuff's flying all over the place, and it's a total visual mess. But you don't have to know anything about the game to know that is interesting to look at, and that there's a lot of moving parts going on, and that it's just kind of, it's funny it's so chaotic that it's funny. So that was something that I really thought I could lean into and capitalize on, was that like the visual style bringing a immediate interest to the game.
Yeah, and I think that the style also vibes very well with the playful nature of the game. Like, it's, people get the point of the game almost immediately, and the style fits with that, where you're just sort of messing around trying to make the most chaotic synergies you possibly can. And even I've seen, like, sometimes the game crashes because the points are too high, and people actually think that's funny. Like, they don't mind. It's almost a badge of honor to make the game crash. It somehow fits with the vibe.
Yeah, I've been told a few times that it's almost like a rite of passage to get your game to crash, to hit the integer 64 limit. It's a problem that I'm working on fixing, and I'm really glad that people aren't too upset over it. Because I think it's just a really it's a unique thing that happens once you get that late. It's like, wow, it's been telling me I've been breaking the game, but now I actually broke the game, and it's kind of like a rewarding feeling, you know?
Absolutely. So we got a question from Voxed1 that I was wondering about as well. What inspired the aesthetic of the game? Did you play retro PC edutainment games themselves that resulted in this aesthetic? And what made them choose this over more common nostalgic aesthetics in the indie scene like pixel art?
Yeah, so as a kid, I grew up in that like right at kind of the end of the retro aesthetic games that people are kind of referring to it as, like the kind of crappy 3D rendering and the really low resolution and the clashing of art styles. So I grew up with that, and it's always had a place in my heart because those were the games I played as a kid. As a kid, I played, and I'm not bashing the art style of Peggle, but I played a lot of like Peggle. I played all those like educational flash games. There was one in particular, and I believe it's lost media now because I haven't been able to find it. I've been searching for it for years. It was called like an English Playhouse or something, and essentially what it was is you were in this strange house, and it had all these objects in it, and you could click on any one of the objects and it would bring you to like a new location with weird imagery, and it would play sound effects, and really goofy stuff would happen when you would interact with things. So the visual style of that game I felt was similar to what I was trying to do with Nubby, with like that flash style. And also the fact that it was like everything was so interactable, and there was like a sound effect with everything. That was kind of what captured me with that game. It was like, wow, I can really click on anything here and it's gonna make a sound. I've gotten the comment before, like there's about Nubby, that there's sound effects where sound effects don't need to be. And it's not said in like a negative way, but that was one thing that I really tried to do there. Was kind of bring the edutainment aura to Nubby, where everything kind of has its own little quirk to it. As those games were made for kids, the edutainment games that I played as a kid were meant to be goofy and silly. So I thought replicating that style of that sense of humor, along with the visual style of the games that I kind of grew up with, kind of melding those two together was the best course of action for something that I wanted to do that would be unique. And you asked why I didn't use like pixel art or common or conventional means of making art for games. And I think that comes down to mostly me wanting to, simply put, be unique. I think I saw an interview once with The Binding of Isaac, the developer Edmund McMillan, and he said something that really resonated with me. He said, people want what they haven't seen. And I thought that was just such a good quote to live by when you're designing a game that's trying to do something different, So having that mentality and going forward with the art design there, I just wanted to do something that would stand out against my peers.
I think you absolutely succeeded in that. You really evoked the style of the exact games you're talking about. The Peggle inspiration is also very clear with the gameplay itself. And yeah, you do sometimes see indie games with this aesthetic, but I've found it's mostly like horror games, actually. Like horror games use the edutainment aesthetic or the like early PC game aesthetic a lot, as a contrast to the horror, because it's sort of fun and kiddie, and then, a jump scare happens. I've never seen it just played so seriously, and Nubby's Number Factory itself sounds like one of those games that I always say in my videos you would find in a cereal box. Like you'd find in a cereal box some weird collection of demos or something, and it would be games that look like this.
I like that comment, find it in the cereal box. That's a unique one. That's true. It kind of has the bargain bin feel to it, where it's a game that was not made by a mainstream game developer and perhaps not polished. And yeah, I've heard remarks about that in terms of Nubby not being a horror game, but using the aesthetics of edutainment. I've heard that it's refreshing. I think I would agree. I never set out to make a horror game. And I've seen those games, and I've played a few of them, and they're pretty fun. They're cool, and it's cool that they're using the edutainment style, right? But yeah, I think I would agree that it's a refreshing take on it. I think it's more so like me trying to do something unique and something that feels really authentic to myself and make something that feels really human. Which is why I kind of went above and beyond with the unconventionalness of it, and kind of like the scrappy nature of Nubby, where you have these 3D pre-rendered models, and then sitting in the corner is a green screen picture of me.
Yeah.
So I like to embrace that the human nature of that. That's I think how I would describe a big inspiration for me, is just trying to keep it human.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a arbitrary choice using this aesthetic. It feels like you are really fond of it. It comes from the heart. It's the games you grew up with. And you got a fondness for this kind of thing. Even like your website just looks like it comes from the 90s. Everything you're doing is embodying this kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it with my website and kind of how I've just established this really weird art style is like kind of the avenue I'm going down as an artist. I think I truly find joy in making things that look like they come from a decade or two before our modern era. And I think it's just back to the point of refreshing. You go to any big tech company website and it's just so it's been, I mean, the term's been used a lot, but like corporate art, it feels kind of fakey, and while it's very sleek and beautiful to look at, it's nice to take a breath of fresh air and load up like a website from the Wayback Machine that's like from the 90s and just looks awful, and like repeating patterns in the background, and like the under construction GIF loading everywhere, and like weird fonts and colors and fuchsia and really bright colors, and seeing all of that, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. And I think that's why I designed my website like that, because again, it stands out, right?
For sure. It's fun to go back to like old internet. It was chaotic, but it had character. Like indie games are some of my favorite games coming out in modern times. They tend to be more creative, more interesting, but a lot of them do also have similar aesthetics. When you think of an indie game, I think of the aesthetic of a game like Fez or something. That pixel art, a very clean pixel art look. Nubby's Number Factory even stands out among your peers there as just wacky, and people just instantly are like, this is new and fresh. I like this.
Yeah, I think, something that really surprised me, I kind of like over the 6 or 7 months that I've been developing the game before release on March 7th, I had been amassing, like a small cult following of like, 100, 200 people. And they all were responding to it really nicely. And I thought, okay, well, this is my niche, right? This is who I'm going to sell copies of the game to. Maybe 200 to 500 people I'll sell copies to, and that'll be it, right? And I was so utterly blown away by the positivity towards it. It was like everyone kind of simultaneously went like, oh my god, yes, this is exactly what I need right now. And that blew me away. I didn't think it would go beyond my small little niche. And I'm really super happy about that. And I hope I've gotten emails from people saying like, oh, this has actually inspired me to make a game of a similar style. Like, wow, that's really awesome that we could be bringing this back. It's great. It's really a positive thing.
Yeah, you might have started something here. That's so wonderful to hear. That's so wonderful to hear that it like outdid your expectations like that. I personally discovered the game from a streamer called Chibli, who then introduced the game to Northern Lion. I watched both of them play it heaps, and I just had to get it myself.
Yeah, so Chibli was actually my first big break.
Yeah.
I think I released on March 7th, and sales were doing, they were doing pretty well, and I was pretty much doing exactly how I thought I would, and I was pretty happy about it. And then I get a text or a ping on Discord like, hey, Chibli's streaming your game right now. I'm like, what? There's no way, because I knew who he was. I watch NL, I've been watching him for years, and I watched Chibli play it. I'm like, that was the most mind-blowing thing for me. And then I've been hearing rumors. I'm like, okay, well, Chibli's good friends with NL, and people were saying like, oh, Mog, NL might be streaming it tomorrow. So I woke up the next day, and I just could not control my heart rate, I was just a mess like the whole morning. And you know, he booted up the stream, played like Wordle or whatever for an hour, and then he hopped on Nubby, and it was just like it was a very surreal, awesome moment. And there wasn't even, I was expecting like the chat to be like, oh my god, this game looks awful, this is the worst graphics I've ever seen, but people were so supportive of it, and I think it's become kind of a bit of a fan favorite amongst his community, and I'm super happy about that. And you know, after NL's back from his little break, I hope I'm putting out an update in the next week to Nubby, and I hope he plays it and continues to play it, because I think people really like it over there. And I'm glad you picked it up from them too. That was kind of like the pipeline, as people kind of describe it, like the Chibli to NL to every other streamer pipeline.
Yeah, I often look to them for game recommendations, honestly. And I trust, like, I vibe with their taste in games, like just weird little indie games. It was similar with Super Auto Pets and Balatro, like these, at the time, like weird little games that just have such fun gameplay loops and simple mechanics that play off each other well.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I mean, they're just doing such a favor for the indie community. And it's crazy to me that I kind of have like this imposter syndrome thing where I'm like, God, he played my game out of all of my peers. He played mine. Like, there's no way. And it blew my mind how much power that had. You know, him playing it, and you know, and you playing it for that matter, and Chibli, and you know, Haley, and you know, all these other people that have been loving Nubby, like how much power that has, I had no idea, and it totally blew my mind. Just how, you know, one person can stream it, and then it's word of mouth, and it's just like a wildfire. And it's still like you know, there's so many things happening every day still, you know, after it kind of blew up there, and it's still blowing up. Like that's the thing.
Yeah,
for
it only
me,
just came out, and it's got so far to go. I'm looking forward to see it get even bigger. I think it feels like it will just be exponential.
No, I think totally. I am super happy to keep working on it. Like I've just been, you know, I've been working on it for about 1.5 years now since I started it, and it's just been like one of the most fun projects I've ever had the pleasure of working on, and I don't see myself stopping working on it anytime soon. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's got a long way to go, and you know, gonna be real with you, I kind of wish I pushed the date off, the release date off, like maybe just a month, you know, just so it's a little bit more polished. But you know, it's been really cool to see how much a game can grow in a week.
How do you feel watching all the people play it and like how they're approaching it? Is there anything that's like unexpected for you? With these games, there's always like a meta that forms, and maybe you didn't realize how good a certain item was that everyone's using, or like certain strategies people are using, synergies you yourself never thought of. Is there anything that surprised you in that sense?
Yeah, you know, I experienced that moment, that like, oh, I didn't realize this was so broken. I experienced that moment every single time I put out an update or like changed the functionality of some item. I didn't know Cheese House was gonna be like the best item to get from round 0 to 30.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, it's really like, I thought, yeah, I'm like, oh, no, it's flat points, right? That's only gonna take you so far. But it really just that one blew my mind. Laser pointer blew my mind. I didn't know that was so powerful. Jake the Snake too, once you start like loading 50 force triggers on it, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, he's probably one of the best, if not the best. Yeah, there's so many items where I'm like, God, really? Like, when I added that, I'm like, okay, 1 in 4 chance to double all pegs. Yeah, you know, that's a 25% chance. That's like 2 coin flips. But you know, once you start thinking about it, like how many perks you can have, like that's so insane. So I think I need, you know, that's a weakness of mine, where I tend to think of like from round 0 to 80. I'm like, okay, let's think about what items would be good from round 0 to 80, but not consider like endless, or you know, round 150 where they have 1,000 kebab perks. Um, so, starting to expand it and think about late game more is something I've been thinking about doing. But yeah, so to answer your question, Cheese House, Jake the Snake, Laser Pointer, and Yeti surprised me.
What's your approach to like balance? Do you think it's because games always take on a life of their own? You never know what's going to be good, and like you can never predict how people are going to play. You just sort of making a bunch of items that seem cool, I imagine, and then just seeing what happens from there, throwing things at the wall. Would you like nerf any items or change anything, or are you just gonna let the game evolve into whatever it becomes, or iterate on it by adding more things, or what do you think your approach is gonna be to that? I suppose you might not even know.
Yeah, you kind of brought up both sides of how I'm thinking about balance. Like, on one hand, I really am. I'm just like, okay, what looks cool on screen? What grabs people's attention and like makes a cool sound? Like, what's cool? And then I think like, okay, we'll try it out, and if it's really broken, then I'll nerf it a little bit. It's just like these little trial and error things. But you also brought up this point, like, what if I just let Nubby become what Nubby wants to become, and just keep throwing in the things in the game that are like super, super broken past round, 60. And what if that just kind of becomes like the way the game is played? Where it just kind of evolves into this different, like it's like a break-a-thon. How fast can you break the game, or how insane of a score can you possibly get? Like that's a huge thing in the Nubby community, is like, oh my god, I just got to 2 octillion points, and it's not the fact that it's like, oh, I had a really fun time, with the item synergies and getting all these things to work. It's just like the power and the number go up feeling of getting to an octillion points, and like that's a huge draw. So I have to consider like, okay, well, can't nerf everything or else people aren't going to get that that little mental high anymore. So it's a really weird, it's a weird thing to think about. And I think about that question too. That's a great question, because I think about it all the time and I have no idea how to like totally answer that question. I'm kind of winging it in that regard. I'm winging it, and like I don't even know what approach I'm supposed to be taking, right? It's just such a weird game. W is a really weird game.
Feels like a game that's breaking a lot of rules. Like, you hear all these things about game design, like you should do this and this. Nubby feels like it's very spontaneous, with like even the item designs themselves are just these completely ridiculous assortment of little 3D pre-rendered GIFs, like the evil goose and like a uranium rod, a pregnancy test. It's completely absurd, and the things that they do it just feels like you came up with it on the spot. I don't know if that's true, but it's like what was your design process for the items? Like, how deeply did you think about how they interact with one another and what their purpose is in the gameplay loop?
Okay, well, you kind of said it yourself a little bit for the items themselves, and talking about, oh, why did I put a uranium rod and a Yeti in the game? I don't know, because I thought it would be funny. Like,
it is funny.
When I'm making art, if I'm cracking up while I'm making it, that is totally 100% going in the game. If I'm having fun making it, it's going in the game. That's my design process for like the cosmetic part of the item. And as for the effect of the item, I like to keep things short. I think of item descriptions. I'm like, if I have to put more than 3 bullet points down, this is getting too nuanced. This is getting too, like, what are we doing here? Like, once it's too specific, then synergies stop popping up. But if you have an item where it's like, I don't know, I'll make up 2 items right now, where it's like, okay, pass goal halves 3 pegs. All right, well, that's 1 item. And if you have another item that says 3 pegs halved multiply goal by 2, those are 2 items that are super simple, but they can kind of fit together, and then you can have more items that play into their that central role, or kind of like Legos, like lots of small pieces is my design philosophy there. So I have things that pop pegs, I have things that double pegs, and I have things that have pegs. And thinking about like, okay, well, how can all these pieces fit together? These really small pieces fit together. That's my goal when I'm looking at items. I think there's a part of me that's like, I should add as many items as I possibly can. But then I have to like, kind of catch myself and be like, okay, well, then I'm not going to be able to have me as the developer, I'm not going to be able to have such like a deep understanding of how these things are interacting. Like I like to understand how to play my own game. But sometimes I don't even. Like the complexity of it comes when you're looking at like the items and like, okay, should I get rid of this early game, or what's the best item for round 10 to 20, and when do I get rid of it? And why is it a bad idea to pick up the drainer perk? Well, because you're not going to win by around 60. Those kinds of things are those are important for me to understand, which is why I want to add more items, but I'm gonna stop myself at some point.
Yeah, it could get too bloated at a point if there's too many items and there's less control you have. Like it's hard to find a specific item you want at that point.
Precisely.
I love the idea of the black market items too. I think it's a great idea. Like with really powerful, unique effects, but they can't be forced. How did you come up with that concept? Because I think that's one of the coolest parts of the game. They feel very special, those items. They feel like rare, and they also feel balanced in the sense that they can't be forced.
Yeah, those are all, I mean, when I was designing items, I had just a giant sheet of just things that I thought would be cool. And there was like, 200 or 300 ideas out there. And I tried a lot of them, over the development of the full version. I tried a lot of different items. I found that like some items were like so fun. Like the pregnancy test was awesome. But then I'm like, oh wait, everything has to play by the same rules. It has to be force triggered. It has to, you have to be able to do that. And then I would force trigger the pregnancy test and the game would crash because the nubbies multiply, right? So I'm like, shoot, well that's such a cool effect. I don't want it to go to waste. And then that's the problem that I was running in with so many different items, like things that just wouldn't work with perks became corrupted items. And I'm gonna I'm adding a lot more black market items because I think it's a really fun thing where it's like you have this opportunity to go to this special place where you can pick up a very special item. And it kind of it makes it feel a little bit more valuable. And those items, some of them are so wacky. So to answer your question in short, the corrupted items came from me wanting to put crazy things in the game, things that were really weird in the game without it totally being broken.
That's a cool solution to that problem. Try to get it to its own exclusive set of items. The items that didn't work with force triggers. Very fun.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I had this idea where I'm like, oh, maybe I could figure out a way, like figure out a loophole to kind of make it work with perks or not make it so broken. And then I'm like, you know what? No. Like I just gotta create a whole new category of items. So that's how the black market was born. The problem came before the black market.
I can't find the exact person who asked the question, but someone said it would be fun if in the future there were more events similar to the Grab-a-Tron in between rounds where you could play a little mini game. Do you have any plans to add stuff like that? Because that would be a very straightforward way to just add more stuff to do, I think.
Yeah. So I got an email the other night. And it was this kid who basically said that. He said, I really like the Grab-a-Tron, but I want more like fun gambly stuff like that. Like, okay, I mean, I can think about doing that. And he offered some solutions. He's like, you can have a slot machine. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I could see that in Nubby. I could see a slot machine. And then he threw out, you could add horse racing. And I'm like,
you know what? That's genius, actually.
It goes with the absurd theme of the game. Like you're playing a Plinko game at a factory, and then all of a sudden you're racing horses.
I can picture it. Like a word art thing comes up, horse race, thing. And then it's just happening, and you gotta pick a horse.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the horse pills, like they're racing.
Yeah, there you go. Now we're making connections. Yeah.
Horse pill race.
Yeah.
There you go.
So something among those lines, I think is in order.
That's
maybe
such a
like
fun
one of those
thing to
things where
brainstorm too. It's just making me want to make a game myself. Like, what little stupid stuff could I put in?
Yeah, and funny enough, that's kind of how the claw machine was born. I have this I have this weird, and a lot of game developers struggle with this. It's feature creep, where you are a game developer and you have, you start out on your game with, X, Y, and Z features that you want to add. And as you're adding your features, you think of other things that you want to add. And, it's just this like irresistible urge to add more stuff. And you gotta walk, it's a fine line that you gotta walk. And I struggle with that a lot, and that's kind of how the claw machine was born. Like I was like, I kind of want to, gamify the shop, but I was having a hard time doing that. So I decided on the claw machine as a fun way to gamble. And same thing with the cafe, like that was total feature creep, but I think it works really well. So there's something there is something to be said about feature creep if it's done right, I guess. I think the cafe, that's one of my favorite parts of the game. I'm thinking about adding like a lot more food items, because I think there's a hidden game to be had in the cafe. Between, like you can kind of feel it starting with like the order in which you eat items. You're thinking like, oh, I have a kidney bean, Dave the tomato here. Like, well, obviously I'm gonna eat, if I have money, I'm gonna eat the kidney bean first and then eat Dave in case it kills, if it sets my money to zero. So, and then the kidney bean, summons a rare item that does something else. So I think there's something to be had. There's some game to be had in the cafe, and that's something that I want to really capitalize on in the next update. Like, perhaps maybe you eat a food and the food's only job is to re-roll the cafe foods. Then then you're able to spend a lot more money at the cafe because you're getting more options. So I really do love the cafe and the whole one-time use item things. And it's also, it serves an avenue for me to think about like permanent scaling or permanent upgrades, like thinking, I'll spoil it. One item that I'm adding to the next update on the 28th of March is an item that when you it's a food item that when you eat it, you permanently gain one jumble plus one jumble to the jumble button for the pegs. So things like that.
Cool.
Where, okay, this is a huge permanent upgrade and it's an investment and it's going to last me the whole game. So those things are in store for the cafe. Lots more is coming.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things in the cafe is the kebab, just because it's a permanent upgrade that you can just stack a bunch of times. Even though it's silly, and it's like, why are you getting a perk from the cafe in particular? It's kind of random, but it's so fun. And I would honestly like to see more like from that. Maybe they could be really expensive. There's like an 80 coin perk you can get from the cafe or something. It gives you a reason to use Dave the tomato to try and double your money to get to that. Or spend all your money on some cool perk that enables something. There's a lot you could do with that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's also kind of the direction I'm looking at for the cafe, is because I'm sure you've run into this problem before. It's like you're at round 60 and you're killing it. Like you're just every single time you're not losing at all. And you have 99 coins for 10 rounds straight. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do with all this? So I'm thinking about, have some incentive for people to want that many coins. So yeah, expensive items are in store as well.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And you mentioned, and something I want to talk to you about, the randomness of it all. I've been getting a lot of mixed feedback about the randomness of Nubby. Some people say, oh, it's fun and it's chaotic when it's random. And other people say it's too random, I'm never in control, and there's zero skill involved. And I'm trying to strike a balance, because I think randomness is pretty fun. Like Dave, like the tomato, it's stupid.
Like, I love that because it's almost never a good choice, but people always do it just as a joke. Every time I see people play, they do it, even though it's a bad choice.
Exactly. Same thing with the lentil. Like that is 100% a gamble. It's like a joke item, and you would only ever seriously want to eat it if your run was just in the gutter. And same thing. And the Dave, and what I'm doing in the next update is I'm actually making Dave free. So you don't have to have any money to screw
Oh
yourself
yeah,
over.
that actually makes sense. That actually makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the randomness part of it is something I want to tone down, and especially in the item effects where it's too random, or like thinking about me adding in the ability to jumble the pegs more than once kind of makes random a little less scary, because you could totally get screwed over on holiday cheer, and then your run's over. You get screwed over once. Oh shoot, maybe I'll jumble the pegs and it'll fix it. You jumble it again and then
Yeah.
you get screwed over again. Right. So I think those moments are frustrating, and where you're really just at the whim of whatever number the game throws at you. So things like that I'm gonna tone down. Those are like the real issues. I don't like hearing when people are like frustrated by my game. I think it's funny when people get angry or like feel competitive about it, but being frustrated and quitting the game is like a different thing. So anytime I can prevent that, I will. But overall, people like Nubby a lot. So I think if there's, out of 1,800 reviews, if 30 people are not a fan of the RNG, is like, okay, well, are the other 1,770 people a fan of the RNG? Should I listen to them, right? So I don't know. There's a lot to be.
It's hard to know. In my experience, I think like something that can be annoying is just the natural variance of bouncing off the pegs. Because sometimes you literally, like, maybe it's my fault as a gamer, but like sometimes I'm, trying to, like, I'll just hit one peg and just happen to bounce directly into the void. Like I'll just thread the needle between every other peg, and then I get screwed. Especially when I'm doing the nub block challenge, or trying to. That happens a lot, where sometimes you just get totally screwed by a shot, and it feels difficult to actually predict where the ball's gonna go.
Yeah, that is a complaint I get a lot, is that physics are kind of wonky. I think they are. They're, to be honest with you, top secret information, the entire physics system is one line of code. There's a move bounce function in Game Maker that's like a built-in thing for advanced elliptical collisions, and it just kind of works. And I mean, I was screwing around with physics for so long that I eventually just kind of got fed up with it and decided to go with this really simple method, which it works. It works, but not to the extent that I want it to. And I've always wanted to do some sort of if you're familiar with Peggle, the super guide thing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is in Peggle, every character has a little power related to how they shoot the ball or how they pop the pegs. It would be cool to add stuff like that. Like, the super guide, or what else? Even the rabbit fella who has like a random
yes,
like casino in the middle of popping the pegs.
Yeah, that's a fun one too. I think I can maybe evolve the special events, because that's like where something like that would fit in, is these little moments throughout the game where you get maybe a little extra power, or you can do something fun. And that was kind of what I was trying to accomplish with the special events. Like, oh, for this round, 4 random pegs are bombs. But it's like, it just kind of, it's like, the general impression I get from people with the special events is like, it's whatever. It's just kind of another round, but like slightly different and maybe fun or easier. Or,
I like them. I like the special events.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah, I think most of them are pretty fun. I would like to add, I really like the sniper one with like the ghillie pegs. I always thought that one was kind of fun, because you just always rack up a huge score. I think a little thing, if there's more variation between them, that can be kind of fun, because then you actually don't know what you're gonna get. So there's some more incentive to maybe like use a special seed there, because people don't often like use other people's seeds in Nubby. So I'm thinking of ways like, okay, well, what can I do to make people feel like a certain seed is more valuable than another one? And I think it's just more variation, which is like the number one complaint I get about the games, that there's not enough variation. What are your thoughts on the items in the game or lack thereof? Do you think there's enough, or do you feel like there could be more done?
Item design is tough, I imagine, because you don't want to make too many good items, because then the game is just like simple and not difficult. Like, there are a lot of items that are kind of strange in their effects, especially some of the rare items. A lot of them are kind of difficult to make work, like the flaming skull. And there's another one that I rarely use, but it's rare and it has like a flaming effect, but I'm like, I don't really want to use it actually. I mean, I think it's fine. I quite like the pool of items as it currently is, and the way you can build synergies with them. Especially the halving ones feel like they're all a little package designed to synergize with each other.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I've been kind of working on, is those like built-in synergies where kind of like I was talking about earlier, where you have all these little tiny small pieces that kind of work together. That's the main thing that I'm trying to accomplish with the next update. I'm updating the challenges because people have been saying some of them are a little bit too RNG-y, mostly referring to Amnesiac. Yeah, so many people stumble over that one, and I feel really bad.
I did beat that one. It took a while, but I.
Oh, that's good. That's good. RNG was nice to see that day, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest focus for the next update is adding more build variety. Because I'm at this point now where these next couple updates are either gonna make or break my game. Like, I feel like I'm just maybe at the cusp of a game that has some longevity. But it's like at the state it's in, people are gonna get tired of it. And it's a fun game, and there's a good amount of content, but once you're through it, once you've seen it all, you've kind of seen it all. So if I could add more content that maybe allows for strategies to be invented by players over time, that would be my ultimate goal, is just longevity. Because it's my dream to make a really good game that stands the test of time and goes down as one of the better roguelikes.
Yeah, I think you've got the foundation of something really incredible here, and I imagine there's a lot of pressure on you, like with the unexpected success, and it's very overwhelming. I would hope that you don't overthink things too much. Maintain the design philosophy you started with, which is just like having fun with it, following humor as like a guiding light, like just whatever you find funny or cool. That is where I think that's where the appeal of the game is born from. You could tell it comes from like a genuine sparks of inspiration.
Thank you for that. That's really kind of you. I think you're right. A big appeal for the game is just like I was kind of mentioning earlier, like the human aspect, where it's like I've literally put myself in the game. I am.
Yes, yeah.
I am sitting in the corner of your screen.
If people don't know, Tony in the game is the developer. It's him.
Yeah, yeah. It was a sidetrack, but that was all done with green screen, and I was thinking about calling up maybe one of my friends at college to come do it for me, and I'm like, no one's gonna want to do this, or like I'm like, I gotta do. I don't want them to feel reserved when they're doing it or feel like they're being too weird, but I'm like, I have no problem being extremely weird and putting myself out there, so I'm like, I'll just do it myself, and I'll be the really strange supervisor in the corner. So
it's so funny. And I love the fact that for an inexplicable reason, you are also the final boss. Like, your own character just shoot lasers at you. Like, was that just a random idea? Like, wouldn't it be funny if Tony was the boss?
Yeah, that was the philosophy. It was just like, I thought, what can I do to make a memorable final boss? I'm like, how about this guy that's been sitting in the corner of your screen this whole time finally just like snaps and just starts killing, like it starts trying to make you lose. There's no explanation for it or anything, and it's just like, what? Like, what? Like, where did this come from? And I think that was the funny part for me, is that it's just so unexpected, and there's zero context for it. And like right after you beat him too, he's just back to being Tony. Like he's just there again. Yeah,
it's great.
Oh yeah, he was one of my favorite things to do in the game, was to take those green screens, because once I you know, I had all these 3D pre-rendered parts put in the game, and it looked cool. And I'm like, you know, there's something missing. There's like what can I add to this screen that when you look at it, you're like, what world am I looking at? That was a, you know, sidetrack again. That was one of the main design philosophies of the art style, was made for marketing. You know, what can I do to get like the instant reaction? Tony does that. Tony does that perfectly. You don't see humans in video games very often. Like, or
Yeah,
maybe
it looks
you
like
did.
some SNES games they had like photos that looked like that because they were very low resolution, and they almost had like a stop motion look with the way they were animated. You've captured that well. Tony looks exactly like those.
Yeah, that was one of my inspirations. I started you know, looking into, like, I think it was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they had like, 'cause they were still like, we were in this weird awkward stage of video games where like video games were like almost not cool for a while, and like the industry was dying. We were doing all these weird things trying to revive it, and like one of those weird things was just putting humans in the game. I just thought that was the quirkiest, funniest thing ever. And it's so off-putting to play that game now, where it's like it's very uncanny to see. But I think there's a charm to it. You know, if there's a charm to it, I like to put it in the game.
I personally love the pre-rendered 3D look, in particular. Like Donkey Kong Country, I think holds up incredibly well.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
it's not a style you see
I love
often.
Donkey Kong Country. I love it. I love it so much. It's just so it's such a it's a relic from the era, from that era, you know. And it's, again, like I said, like we were in this weird awkward stage, and it's, no one does that anymore, and no one pre-renders graphics, so it definitely makes it stand out and makes it weird. I originally was actually going to make Nubby in Unity and try to actually render a real 3D space for it. But you know, I took a couple steps into Unity and I started learning about like distance vectors and stuff, and I'm like, I'm in over my head here. I'm just gonna use what I'm used to using, which was Game Maker.
I think the pre-rendered look certainly serves the game, and if it was real 3D, it might be a bit weird.
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't know how that would have been. It would have been really strange to
Probably
see
would have been a whole
like
different
Nubby
game.
go back into space. Oh, absolutely, a totally different game. Yeah, I think if we want to talk about the main design of roguelikes nowadays, I'm finding this pattern where people are taking a game that exists, like, let's just talk about Balatro, just say it's using poker and making a roguelike out of it. And there's so many, like, it's a trend amongst roguelikes, and I think it just works so well. To take something like, I don't know, take like pool or like billiards. Like, I've seen like a billiards roguelike. And you know, turning this game, or like adding a twist to the original game to make it a bigger strategy. I just thought that was such a cool way to design a game, or a roguelike in specific. Just take a game and really
Yeah, it's a good approach too, to not let it get too feature bloated, as you said, because you're starting with a very simple game that already exists in real life, you know. And then you just iterate on that in ways that are sometimes pretty straightforward. Like Balatro feels so natural because it's using the fundamentals of poker. And even Local Thunk's design philosophy with the jokers he talked about in interviews reminded me a lot of what you just said about item design. Keep them like a simple one-word effect, so that like the items work well together as a series of things, rather than like just one joker doing a million different things.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about Balatro, I love that game so much. And it's, I think something that really speaks to me about that game is just the elegance of it all. Just the way that everything just kind of works. Like, there was a point where I first started the game and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know. And then all of a sudden it just kind of clicked for me. And I'm like, okay, this is probably the best roguelike I've ever played. And it's really amazing to me when people kind of compare Nubby to Balatro. And I think striving to get to that point of like the elegancy of that game, and the way every piece fits together in a new way, and there's like so many strategies to get to that point. That's one of my ultimate goals with Nubby, is to make it feel something like that. And it's very it's flattering. it's flattering to be compared to Balatro as well.
I think what you've done similarly to Balatro is the feeling of like the number going up in a satisfying way. Balatro is like a masterclass of just good sound design and like the dopamine release of getting a high score, like all the and the way that it pitches up over time and like everything's stacking up and re-triggering. And it's so satisfying when you have a good Balatro run. It like tickles the brain. Nubby is kind of the same. With like the effects for all the different like words that come up, Nubtastic, Mega Score, Ultra Divine Score. It like you also have the sound effect that like pitches up in a similar way. It's really it's really fun.
I think absolutely. I think it's a big part of the dopamine release is making it pretty. Like making that
it's very important.
Really overwhelming when you do something great. You know, it should make you really feel like, whoa, I broke the game. You know, like that was a really fun one to add, and people really liked that one a lot because it's like it's well, in one way, it's kind of fourth wall breaking, but it's also just the feeling that you just did something so powerful that the game almost didn't want you to do it. You know, and adding adding the lights and the fireworks and like, you know, and all the sound effects, it does. I'm really proud of the sound design in my game for being able to do that, because I kind of get lost in a Nubby hole too sometimes. Like I just kind of like zone out when I'm playing it or fixing bugs. I'm like, okay, I need to snap out of it and keep writing code.
Yeah, and you mentioned Imposter Syndrome earlier and how you admire Balatro. You'd look at it as a source of inspiration. But you even remember like Local Thunk is not too different from you. He was an unknown developer before Balatro, and he said like he just made games as a little hobby on the side. Like when he came in from work, he just liked developing games that were mostly played by his friends. And he said that like putting Balatro on Steam was something his friend told him to do because he thought it was fun, and that it just blew up astronomically from there. You never expected it to be so well received. So he probably felt all this because, you know, Northern Lion played the game, he's a fan. There's like similarities between your stories, honestly. It's important to remember that some great game developers are often just like, they don't think of themselves that way, or they...
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I do kind of see the similarities between the story. You know, like I'm not even going to college for game development. I'm just a student. I'm in art education. I'm gonna be a teacher, and I just so happen, you know, it's just my hobby, and it's just what I do. And it's just the past week has kind of been, you know, making me think about like, okay, wow, this is really something that I've made a name for myself in. So thinking about all the different avenues that could take me down, and it's just there was just such an unexpected nature of it, right? Like kind of like I was talking about earlier, where it was like this, I had this niche, you know, 100 to 200 people, and I didn't think it would get any bigger than that, and certainly not, you know, to the point where it is now, where it's like posted on the front page of Steam for like the past week and a half. It's so
amazing.
So surreal. Yeah, I'm so happy about it, and I think I've gotten a lot of emails too, and it makes me really happy when people, other game developers will email me and, you know, say like, oh great, I'm so glad, you know, the indie dream is still alive. Like, and it kind of, I was thinking there it wasn't, the indie dream was dying, and it's proven to me that it's very much still alive. The one person can make a game and have it absolutely explode is still very, very much alive. And yeah, it's cool. Balatro was inspiring to me in that regard too, where it kind of reminded me like, oh, this was just one guy, like, and I'm one guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so cool.
You're going to inspire more people. You're even people are talking about they want to implement that art style in their game. Like, you're already having a bit of an impact. Maybe we'll see a bunch of Nubby clones prop up. Like...
Yeah, that would be cool. I would love to see a Nubby clone pop up. Yeah, I think I was thinking about it today when I was driving. And I've kind of taken an idea from Plinko, but also like merger games, and these really like addictive by nature number go up games. And it's so some people say it's just like the most addictive thing they've ever played, and I'm like, God, like there's no way, like what am I, like and I'm hoping that like this kind of style of game or this gameplay loop isn't utilized in like a mobile game, like really grimy business tactic like microtransactions and stuff. And like I'm hoping this isn't, abused in that sense because it has such an addictive
There are
nature.
definitely monetization engineers like studying Balatro and what makes it addictive, and there's going to be some diabolical like brain hack game that comes out. You already know that's in the works, but people like you maintaining the spirit of just fun with that, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think so. The spirit of fun is that's always that's been the point of video games for me. I've never been big on not to bash anyone. I've never been big on League of Legends or like CS:GO or games that really kind of make me mad. I like to play video games and feel like, oh, I'm winning. Or even if I lose, I feel like, okay, well, that was fun anyways, right? So I think that will always be a big part of my game design story. It's just trying to make something that doesn't make people mad. By the way, speaking of mobile game, I think I have officially decided that I am going to be doing a mobile port for Nubby. So hopefully I'll be able to beat the Nubby clones to it, but so now you can take Nubby with you everywhere.
That's a dangerous idea. Yeah, Balatro and Mobile has been a disaster for me. Even Nubby will be.
I haven't picked it up.
Maybe I shouldn't have. I'm playing it like every spare moment I have. I'm playing Balatro, commuting or whatever.
But I feel like a big difference between Balatro and Nubby, and I've heard it said a few times, and I kind of agree with it. Is that when you play Balatro, after your game, you feel like I agree, I feel a little bit smarter after playing. Where I'm like, okay, I feel like I learned something. I feel like I did the math and I like kind of outsmarted the game there for a little bit. But people say that when they're done playing Nubby for like hours on end, they feel like a brain fog.
Oh no.
I kind of agree. They're like, this has got to be killing brain cells. Like, can we get like the Surgeon General to come take a look at Nubby brain?
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but it's interesting. I've found the most fun way to play the game has been the nub lock. I feel like the fact that my item dies if I don't reach the goal makes me think way more about what I'm doing. Even to the point of thinking about how the peg bounces when I get like a bad roll on the peg order, and like the highest value peg is in a weird corner. Like, can I bounce to hit it? How am I procking my items? I'm thinking about every perk and what I have. Somehow that's just gearing me towards a more analytical way of playing.
Yeah, maybe that's the secret sauce, is creating something that's like there's so much tension there, and
yeah,
there's like a real sense of danger. I think Nublock is going to be getting a little bit of a rework. I'm not quite sure what the rework is going to be, but I've had a lot of people actually really hate that challenge a lot.
They hate it. Well, I haven't beat it yet, but I'm having a lot of fun with the way it's making me think of the game.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear then. Yeah. I like those moments, especially like my favorite part of Nubby is like your last shot, especially if you're like kind of later on in the game and you've like invested some time. My favorite part is like the last shot where you're like, okay, I have to hit that peg and bounce off that peg, and hopefully that passes the goal so my nose goes off and pops more pegs, and then I get +2 lives, right? Thinking about those things, like that is my favorite part, when there's like a serious sense of tension.
That's kind of the whole point of roguelikes, isn't it? The permadeath.
Yes. Yeah, I think that might be why I think it's my favorite genre of video game, because it's, you can well, for one, it fits into my lifestyle and just what I do in a day. I like to pick up a game for an hour, play it, and then go do something else. But there's that, like there's this, okay, I've invested time into this, like don't screw it up, right? And like I think a game that does that really well is the Binding of Isaac. And once you get to those final bosses, you're like, oh my god, like I've been going for so long, I'm on a half a heart, and it's like there's bullets flying all over the place, I'm gonna die. Like those are so fun, where you can actually feel like your heart rate, going up.
I used to love that in Spelunky, the later stages, because everything in that game could kill you in one hit. So you got to be so careful at all times.
Oh, tell me about it. That's actually even a better example of this really intense moment that we've been kind of talking about, like especially with just the every single step you take, you could the smallest screw up, it's done, and it's gonna be so hard to get back to that point. But yeah, I love Spelunky too. It's one of my favorites.
Do you think you would consider like some sort of mode, or maybe a Slay the Spire style Ascension system that adds that level of difficulty to Nubby's classic mode? Some people have said a complaint is that there's no like incentive to play classic mode. Even, in my opinion, like the game itself is the incentive, but there's no like progression happening in classic mode.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I've been kicking around the idea a little bit. I have like a prestige mode set up with
cool.
one of the supervisors, like the last supervisor is prestige mode. But I think I can do better than that. I think Ascension just makes more sense. I love Slay the Spire Ascension, and it getting to that final level was so rewarding in beating Ascension 20. I think, yeah, like you said, there's really no progression past on classic mode. So and the incentive to play with the other supervisors is just to do something goofy and kind of maybe change up the way you play the game a little bit. But I would absolutely 100% consider an Ascension mode for Nubby. I think it would be a cool thing to kind of to work towards. Give people a couple more hours of playtime, right? Certainly, Slay the Spire Ascension gave me like a couple hundred other hours of
Yes.
of playing the game. So it's an effective method, of course. Yeah.
Exciting idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten that comment quite a few times, so I'm really thinking about doing that.
I'd love to see something like that. What about a daily challenge? I almost don't know how that would even work in Nubby.
I think I would first of all need to like figure out how to get high scores up. I think it would be fun because I'm a big fan of dailies as well. I love the Spelunky daily challenge. I think maybe if to do something with like a seed, or maybe a special arrangement of I don't know, special events and bosses might be kind of fun. I think it would be a cool thing. Yeah, give you kind of an incentive to maybe log on every day without pulling like the mobile game. Log on every day and you get a free chest incentive,
Yeah, I always found daily challenges so fun. And you could take the approach of like, it's not necessarily about the leaderboard, it's just a daily run that's curated, a specific order of things happening, or a more curated series of rounds. That could be a fun approach
Yeah,
too.
that's another good idea. Yeah, the kind of going off of that, the Super Auto Pets like weekly challenge.
Oh yeah,
is
I
always
love that.
really
I love that.
yeah. I've always been a huge fan of that. I think maybe maybe doing something if I ever get to the point where there's enough items, like maybe taking certain items out of the pool and like you only get 30 out of 60 items to choose from, or however many I decide on. Though I think that would be kind of a fun thing, like because it really kind of forces you to be like, how can I make it work? Like what's the meta here, and what am I going for? And those things are really fun when you're doing like a multiplayer game with Super Auto Pets. But I think there is some untapped potential there with single player games for sure.
We've got a question from my buddy Munby, who asks, what do you think is the relationship between video games and art? It's an interesting question to ask you, because you have another game that's, I guess, still in development that seems like a very personal and artistic project with a very bizarre premise that I wanted to ask you about. It's called Dysphoric Soymilk Lidocaine and has a very absurd premise.
Yes. So that's something that I've been kind of trying to think about in my game development. I've been thinking about art for a long time in terms of game development, and thinking like, what can I do to express myself through video games? Because I spend so much time making video games, and I consider it to be how I artistically express myself. I do ceramics and painting and drawing, but I really feel like I'm truly able to express myself when it comes to game dev. I don't know why that is. I think it's just something I know a lot about, and creating something you can, with so much versatility in what you can do, is a big draw for me. Like, I think a good example of an artistic video game is the Hylix series by Mason Lindroth, and it's all stop motion, dithered, palette reduction. It's such a cool art style. Like, wow, you get to really experience this whole other world. and it can do something, you know, that a painting just can't do. Not to bash the entire art form of painting, but I think there's so much freedom in video games with art, and there's definitely untapped potential in what we can do as game developers when it comes to making our games an artistic representation of ourselves.
I just looked up Hylix too. This game looks crazy. I've never seen this before.
Go play it. After we're done, play it.
I think I will. This looks insane. Love the
Yeah,
style.
he's done a really great job. Big inspiration for me. I've taken artistic inspiration from a lot of different video games that aren't even from the era that my game kind of represents. You know, like I've taken some inspiration from Cruelty Squad, some from Hylix. You know, these games that I think are really doing something great artistically, and I really admire it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I really admire games that are going out of their way to make a point to be artistic and weird. I think because I think people really like weird, and you know, it's not boring. If it's weird, it's usually not boring, right?
Yeah, I think video games are such a fun artistic medium, and I think a lot of people think of that question in a very simple way, where a lot of games that people view as like artistic feats are AAA games that are very story driven, like they very story focused, something like Red Dead Redemption 2, which has its merit, but I think even something like Balatro is a work of art. It has no story, but the presentation and the personality that shines through in it, the expression of the developer, like that's a work of art. Like no one else could have made that except that one guy, you know? And it is a very visionary sort of thing. I feel the same way about Nubby. Like Nubby's not a conventional story or anything. It's just a bunch of little like tidbits from your personality. What do you think is funny? What do you think is cool? You made something truly unique from it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I think there's in Balatro's case, it's some of these games, especially games that are made by one person, like I think Hylix was, and Cruelty Squad. It's such a pure reflection of like one person that it's always going to be something unique. And it's like, you know, and I love Red Dead Redemption, but it was made by how many hundreds of people, and you know, after a while that kind of becomes like a homogenous mix of personalities and views and art styles, and it all kind of comes like just kind of like muddy in a way. And I'm not dissing the art style of Red Dead Redemption. It's beautiful graphics, but there's like you said, it's like there's the personality just shines through so much when it's a game made by one person. So if anyone listening is thinking about doing game development and you're just one person, I think it's such a good avenue to go down, especially if it's something artistic.
Yeah, there's no limit to what you can do. And a lot of people probably think they can't do it, but I think creative people, like you're making me want to do it, honestly. I think I might pick up game dev. I'm inspired by like Local Thunk and you and these solo developers in general, just throwing stuff at the wall, having fun with it. Even if the game doesn't do well, it's just a source of expression. It's a canvas for you to do whatever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally think you should. I think everyone should. I mean, I wish it was there wasn't such a learning curve, so it didn't seem so intimidating, you know?
Yeah.
I just feel like there's so much like so many people have this potential to do it, and they're such a unique person with you know, unique beliefs that inspire their art style or what they express. I wish more people were indie devs. It's a great place to be as an indie developer, and you have so much freedom over what you do. And you know, when you succeed, you just feel so good. It's like, wow, I single-handedly, or you know, me and a couple guys, like we made this thing that sold more copies than a game, you know, made by 100 people, and it's like, whoa, like it's really self-fulfilling, and it feels great to make a finished piece, you know. I wouldn't call Nubby quite finished yet, but I think I'm really proud of it, and I'm happy with how things have been going to say the least, I guess.
I think in this day and age, it's like, it's just refreshing to see art for art's sake, you know, with like so many predatory monetization systems and like AAA games with no soul. They're just like, all the edges are shaved off. It's like a safe product. There's a guy telling you where to go at every turn. Something like Nubby stands out in this gaming climate, I think. So many indie devs are like Lethal Company, Went to the Moon, Balatro, all these games that just, people respond well to it. People want like actual works of art that come from somewhere genuine.
I think so. I think that's been a major kind of paradigm shift in the last like 4 or 5 years, is people are kind of like getting fed up or maybe just bored with the AAA experience. And you know, those games are just like, oh my god, like we're doing this again. You know, like it's just kind of like you said, like the safe game. You know, if Nubby was made by a AAA studio, there's no way that having Tony in the corner would ever fly. Right?
Exactly.
It's like it's such a never in 100 million years. Well, because obviously they're trying to, you know, appeal to a large audience. But I really hope there is a big change, and this change continues to take place. It's taking place right now, where we're starting to see more small groups. And I think there's like gotta be a sweet spot for an indie dev team where you can, you know, make something big, but still have it be genuine to all members of the group. Like I mean, even with just like 10 people, you'd have to think that it would be possible. Like, you know, if everyone worked for like 6 or 7 hours a day for like a year, you could go just make something huge and it would be really great.
I mean, like not all great works of art are made by one person, right? Like there are some fantastic movies that are a collaborative effort. You know, all the actors bring in their own little creative flair. Like as long as I think something like Lord of the Rings or something is a creative endeavor where everyone was on the same page with the vision and it came together in a beautiful way. And even AAA devs, I like some of them. I really like Arcane Studios, if you know them, the creators of Dishonored. I think Dishonored is a fantastic game that it's just, it's not too feature bloated. It's like a few core mechanics that they iterate on. It's got a really cool lore and story, but it doesn't exposition dump on you or anything. It's like a good balance, and clearly everyone was really into the idea when they were making it, I think.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Dishonored. I agree, it's a really fantastic game. And I like your point about, you know, all being on the same page. I think that's, or all being enthusiastic about what they're making. Because, you know, there's nothing comes from nothing, right? If there's no enthusiasm there, it's not going to make very interesting art. That's kind of been one of my cornerstones of my artistic philosophy when I'm making things. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've made an item or started making an item in Blender, and I was like bored while I was making it. Like if I'm ever bored while I'm making something, I just pretty much immediately scrap it. Because then it's like, well, if I'm bored with it, then, you know, so is everyone else. They're all gonna be bored, right? So that's
a great philosophy.
Everyone being inspired about something is a very powerful thing.
It's hard because there's obviously financial incentives that muddy that a little bit. Of course, the bigger a studio gets, the less of a coherent vision there's going to be for a game.
Really good. That's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. I've been kind of considering, you know, over these past couple weeks, you know, as my game has gained so much popularity, I'm thinking like, wow, okay, people actually, you know who I am now. And even though I don't have, or I'm probably not going to get a degree in game development, I feel like, you know, given with what I did, I feel like I'd still have, you know, like a pretty good shot at, you know, landing a position in like, you know, like a AA studio or something. And it's been making me think about that. Like, okay, what do I want to do after this? Do I want to, you know, take it to a professional level, you know? So it's a cool thing. It's given me some opportunity in life, and it's like kind of presented me with a little bit of a crossroads. And it's neat. But, you know, there's always that part of me that's still, you know, gonna want to be a indie developer, just kind of doing it as a hobby. I think it's a really fun thing to do as a hobby. Very time consuming, but fun.
I want to return also to your other projects, Dysphoric, Soymilk, Lidocaine. If I could just read the description here for the fellas at home. It says,
Go ahead.
You are a therapist in the year 2050. After a worldwide ban on robot lobotomization, you were assigned to help an artificially intelligent man named Mr. Pat overcome his severe bout of depression. Dig through the memories of Mr. Pat to uncover his deepest troubles and cure him of existential sadness. That is so creative. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's been something that I've been kind of actually thinking about getting back into. You know, maybe as a side project from Nubby, if I ever feel like taking a little break from it, you know. I don't know about in the near future, but I think I love that storyline so much. I think it's a really unique way to frame a game, and I'm really happy with how it kind of went in the first half of development. The reason why I put it on hold and started working on a side project, which ended up being Nubby's Number Factory, because I kind of lost sight of what I was trying to do with the game, and I found myself adding things and like that were confusing to me, even where I'm like, I don't know what we're doing here. So I thought, you know, maybe if I try to get back into that game, which I really want to, because I think it's graphically very unique, fun to look at. I'm really proud of the way it looks artistically. I think it'd be fun to get back into it and maybe go into it with like a more clear, seasoned approach. Now that I have a little bit more experience with serious game development, I think I could take Dysphoric Soymilk Lidocaine pretty far. I don't want to give up on it because I think it's got something, and I'm pretty happy about it. You should link that in the description of this video.
Yes.
Just give people like a little glimpse of what that was like.
I'm not even sure what it is. Like, there's images on the itch.io page. It looks sort of like the game Myst, like a point-and-click adventure, but it has a similar aesthetic to Nubby, but it's just insane. I don't even know what's going on, but it looks intriguing. I would try it if it existed in some form. I'd give it a go.
Cool,
for sure.
Good. I'm glad you say that.
I mean, from how much I like Nubby and the aesthetic, it looks up my alley. Whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it is either. Maybe I was thinking about taking it in an RPG route. I think that would be fun. At first, it was going to be like kind of like a Yume Nikki style game where you're like exploring different dreams and like a walking simulator kind of. But I think I could do something cool with an RPG. And that Dysphoric Soymilk Lidocaine, that was a game that I made completely 100% by myself. I guess what I mean by that is I made the music as well. That's like the only part of Nubby that I didn't make was the soundtrack. And I love the soundtrack so much, Nubby's Number Factory. But I also really like making music. That's something not a lot of people know about me, is that I'm a big fan of music and a big musician. So I could probably, if there's enough interest, I could upload like I still have some builds of DSL if people feel like playing it. I could upload that to the itch page and just say, hey, this is, you know, not finished, but if you're interested in experiencing this, then go for it. Because it's just kind of rotting away on a hard drive right now, you know, and I feel like a little bit bad about that.
It's difficult to, like, sometimes these creative projects just get out of hand. You don't know what they are anymore, like you said. I've felt that way with videos in the past too, as a YouTuber. But yeah, I would love to try the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I think I should put it out. Kind of this talk kind of gave me motivation to do that. I made it when I worked on it when I was a freshman in college, pretty much all year. And it was just like my little secret thing that I worked on. I didn't really tell many people about it, contrary to Nubby's Number Factory. But yeah, I'm in an interesting. Speaking about that, about the whole not telling people I know personally about the game. I'm on spring break right now, from college, and I'm wondering if, you know, when I get back to school, if I'm gonna get recognized by one or two people, because
you kind of look like Tony from Nubby's Number Factory.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I actually, one of my friends from college, he reached out to me like 3 or 4 days ago, and he knew I was working on a game, but he didn't know I put it up on Steam and was, you know, that it was blowing up. He reached out to me because he naturally stumbled across it, and he's like, hey, yo, congratulations. I'm like, wow. I wonder if anyone else is gonna, you know, notice or say anything to me. But I'm just a little bit, you know, I'm nervous. I'm like giddy about it. I'm like, oh my god, am I gonna get, you know, recognized? Am I that famous? No, you're not that famous. You know, I'm just kind of curious to see how that all goes when I get back to school. which will be Monday, so we'll see. I'm beginning to wonder if putting my face as the or like one of the main mascots of the game was like a good idea. Because then it's like, okay, that's clearly me. If you saw me in real life, you'd be like, yeah, that is Tony without a doubt. That is Tony. The glasses maybe is like the only thing preventing any, keeping some anonymity, but maybe that's just something I kind of have to get over. What's out there is out there. There's no changing it. Yeah, I've done it now. There's no going back. So to guys, accept it, get used to it, and just accept that I am Tony.
You can't take it back. It's the Oppenheimer moment.
Yeah. The Pandora's box has been opened.
What kind of music are you into as well? Like, just out of curiosity, I didn't realize you were a musician as well.
Oh yeah. So I'm not to be the I listen to everything guy, but I kind of do. I jump all over the place. I love electronic, Aphex Twin, and Boards of Canada, and then I jump over to like 90s rock, and I really love Radiohead, and I really love the band called Ween, and I really love Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana with the grunge, and then I also like indie sleaze, like MGMT is one of my favorite bands, and the Yeahs is really great, and I don't know, I'm really just kind of all over the place with what I like musically.
It's a cool little collection of different sounds. That's fun. I like Ween as well.
Oh, cool! You're a Ween fan, huh? That's neat. Did you notice the secret Ween reference in the game?
Was it the mollusk?
Yeah, you got it. That's it.
There you go.
not very subtle, huh? I figured that Dean and Gene Ween won't have a problem with it. Yeah. I knew I like to throw references in there, just stupid stuff. I won't spoil anything, but there's like 5 or 6 references to things that I like musically in the game. So I don't know. That's up to people to bring it up.
I'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah, I didn't realize the weed. I guess I should have. But
well, that's awesome. It's good to meet a fellow Ween fan, huh?
Is the 1 ton of feathers a reference to the Lemmy video of steel is heavier than feathers? Is that I keep referencing that whenever I get that item?
No, that's just a generic reference to the what's heavier, 1 ton of bricks or 1 ton of feathers joke. I always just I thought it was funny to just like portray a 1 ton in a giant box of feathers. That would be a interesting sight.
Because Lemmy didn't invent that. That's a more common idea.
Anyway, I think I've got to be heading off now. I've got some plans later on tonight. So if you wanted to do like a little outro or something, I'd be totally down to do that.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It was a wonderful chat. Love your game. Excited for your future. I'll be watching whatever you do, and I hope you also upload more to your YouTube channel about the game development. You've got a few shorts on there that I thought were fun. You guys check that out. Check out the game. Check out the website. Everything MogDog blog has going on. And thank you all for listening, and thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Yeah, it was totally my pleasure, and I was super happy to be on your podcast. Yeah, such a cool moment for me, and it was very nice talking to you. Thanks for all the kind words, and also to the community, thank you for being interested in Nubby. It surprised me,
We
and
absolutely
it's
are.
very delightful to me.
Thank you very much.